Welcome to the Baseball Insiders Prospect Show. Happy Tuesday, noon Eastern time. That means it is time for me. I'm Adam Weinrib, and him, that's Eric Cole, to talk about prospects, the minor leagues, the promotions, the players, everything we love. And opening day of the MLB season is Thursday, 2 days from now. Couldn't be closer unless it was tomorrow or today. But there are only two options in which it could be closer. And so opening day rosters are nearly set, not official, but officially unofficial in a lot of places. And we already know a good deal of top prospects who will be making opening day rosters for the first time. And today, Eric and I wanted to talk about a few of those guys that we're particularly excited for. Eric, Cole, welcome to the show. A bit of an odd one, given that technically two Rookie of the Year contenders have already begun their regular seasons in Roki Sasaki and Matt Shaw. Specifically, Shaw didn't go so great. Sasaki, I don't know. If you love walks, it went really well, but I do think he has the raw stuff to still be a significant contender for ROI. A number of Rookie of the Year hopefuls are starting in the minor leagues, from Roman Anthony to Bubba Chandler, but there are still some big names who are going to get some early season shine, and we're excited to see some of those decisions get made.
Yeah, this is another kind of we had this happen last year too, where just a lot more top flight talent, particularly talent that doesn't have much in the way of minor league experience, period, is actually going to be on the opening day roster. I'm certain that the prospect promotion incentive program plays a role in that, but I just think that teams are being a lot more aggressive now in terms of being willing to put guys early on their opening day rosters as opposed to trying to milk out service time as much as humanly possible. I think they just understand that these wins in April, May, and June do still count, and you want to make your team as good as possible when you have the guys of some. Again, not every top prospect should be on an opening day roster. Even though they're in the top 10 of a ranking, right? But there are guys who they have a skill set, and there's enough evidence to suggest that it could work. I won't say it's not risky. We saw some guys who got the early call up last year struggle mightily. Jackson Holiday, I'm looking right at you. And at the same time, we've seen some other guys kind of make their way through, and others that have overperformed what expectations were. So there's a lot that goes into these decisions, but they're all fascinating. And this year seems like the breadth of them is more than it usually is.
Yeah, we've also got some good heartwarming stories that we're going to talk about on this show specifically. We always, there are always a couple sprinkled throughout the league. That is no different. We've got some older rookies. We've got some phenoms, these opening day rosters. Very interesting. Welcome to the show again every noon Tuesday. You can find us here. If you are not in the Discord, we'd love to see you there. Eric is in there as well. Robert Murray and I, of course, answering your questions. Also, subscribe to the Moonshot, which is our weekly baseball email newsletter with the fan-sided MLB team, including Robert, Eric, myself. Break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, behind-the-scenes info. You can also find all of our writing on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com. That's fansided.com/baseball-insiders, which is where you can find Eric's column today that pairs nicely with this show. So a couple of names, a Rookie of the Year contenders, by the way, just so we mention them, who don't qualify for this podcast because they've been up. We're glad they're making the opening day roster, if many of them are, but these are people we've seen already who are still rookie eligible. People like Jason Dominguez in New York. I know that the non-Yankee fans have prospect fatigue with Jason Dominguez, but there's still a chance he wins the Rookie of the Year for sure. Jacob Wilson of the A's. Kobe Mayo could eventually get a nod. He is not getting called up to start the season, and in fact had some upsetting quotes about how it's a lose-lose going to the minor leagues, and I don't think the folks down at AAA will agree with that, but still. Bubba Chandler and Dylan Cruz of the Nats, who came in at 119 at-bats last year. So good for the Nationals, finding a way to keep Dylan Cruz Rookie of the Year eligible. And he is, in fact, my pick for NL Rookie of the Year. And I think many would agree, although Roki Sasaki going to steal some hearts at the finish line. But let's talk about prospects who we're most excited to see go beyond those names. And I'm going to start us off by just mentioning the obligatory Kristian Campbell mention of the Boston Red Sox. Their everyday second baseman. The Red Sox positioning got a little funky when they signed Alex Bregman and they decided to move Rafi Devers to DH. And now Masataka Yoshida doesn't really have a job, and Roman Anthony's still coming, so Campbell can't play the outfield. It's all weird, but I like that the Red Sox didn't let that deter them from bringing the talent north. And I also like that they didn't let his difficult spring alter their plan at all. He hit 167 with a 576 OPS, and it's spring training, and nobody cared, and they shouldn't have cared because they prefer Campbell's upside to Vaughn Grissom. They prefer starting him early. They prefer him to whatever veteran plug-in option they would have gone with. They know he's their most talented player, and they used him. And is he going to start, gangbusters on fire out of the gate? I'm not sure, but I think by the time they need him to be, he's going to be the best offensive option for them at the position for sure. And why not get those reps in April so that in June, July, and down the stretch, Kristian Campbell is the best version of himself. And as Jim Callis said to us a couple of weeks ago, he might be the best prospect in all of baseball. So that's somebody who you want to give a lot of runway to if you have them in your system.
Campbell is so fascinating to me because the majority of people who evaluate prospects just think he's one of the best prospects in baseball. He checks all the box metrics wise. He's like, the guy has good bat to ball skills. He hits for power. Again, there's not a lot to dislike, right? But I have some concern. And again, this kind of goes back to, when Kylie McDaniel was releasing his prospect rankings, he was notably lower on Campbell. And I asked him about it. And his reasoning for that is that he has heard from enough scouts that he trusts, and as well as like evaluating film himself, is that there is something a little weird about Campbell's swing. Now, I don't care at all about spring training numbers, and frankly, no one really should. Something that we do have to look at, especially in a roster battle. You want to see who's playing their best at a given moment, and those things do matter, right? But like, if Campbell was the most talented guy and with the most upside, him hitting 167 in spring training shouldn't have dissuaded anybody. But when I think about it in the context of his swing is so upright, he doesn't have a lot of bat wrap. And that means that he has to kind of move his bat back before he can get on plane to make contact. That there are some who think that that isn't going to work in MLB because we have not seen guys that have that sort of swing succeed in Major League Baseball, or at least not very many of them. So are those numbers a result of people realizing that they can get away with certain types of velocity or certain types of pitches against that type of swing? Maybe it's just because it's spring training and no one cares and everyone's rusty and they're just putting in the work. Entirely possible. I do think that he is a very, very talented guy, and to make that swing work as well as he has in the minors gives me some confidence that he's going to like find some success in the majors. But at the same time, I'm not thoroughly convinced that this is a guy that once you give him 150 plate appearances, that he's going to find his way and be an all-star and be the rookie of the year in the AL. I'm not there yet. I'm not saying I won't be, but at the same time, it is a bit of a concern, but I also want to find out, right? Like if a guy has a weird swing and is a little bit odd and is still really great, like that's just a good story and a reminder that there are no absolutes in baseball. People, look, Hunter Pence was a long-time member of Major League Baseball, and no one in their right mind would teach anyone to swing like him. No one. And I mean, his was kind of a different problem. It kind of looked like Charles Barkley had taught someone how to swing. But at the same time, like I like these kind of weird outlier examples, but I am a little bit cautious in Campbell.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get an early chance to find out and get some real data in games that do matter. Although if you put, if you gave me truth serum, again, I don't want it. Please don't. I don't know who's giving it to me. I keep it. Frankly, if you have truth serum, I don't want it. But I think Roman Anthony has more of a chance to win the Rookie of the Year award this season in the American League, despite not starting opening day on the big league roster. And when he's ready, what they do with Yoshida does become very interesting because they're running out of excuses and ways to say he's not a DH, he's an outfielder, but we have a full outfield, and yikes. So we'll see. But I do think if he does get an opportunity before the end of the month, he has a pretty good chance to make some loud noise there. But you have a different entrant into the Rookie of the Year mix, someone who, when he was acquired back in mid-December, I don't think any of us saw this conversation coming, and certainly not at this position. And that is Cam Smith, who I guess is an outfielder now.
Yeah, this has been a wild spring. I think that when he was first acquired by Houston, I was surprised that the Astros were able to get him in addition to Isaac Paredes in that trade, because again, it's only 1 year of Kyle Tucker, as good as he is. So to get a guy who a lot of smart people already considered to be a blue chip prospect, plus a starting third baseman to replace Alex Bregman with some team control, that's a really good haul for 1 year of Kyle Tucker. I just had no expectation whatsoever that he was going to be in the opening day roster conversation. Now, there's a caveat here. No decisions have been made yet. We cannot say for certain that he is going to make the opening day roster. However, he's still in camp. basically all the beat writers seem to think that he's going to make the opening day roster. A lot of the national writers are already saying that it's a done deal and he's going to make the opening day
He
roster.
bought a home in Houston. He's engaged to Orbit. Yeah, the signs are all there. It's very clear.
And again, the position switch to the outfield in a vacuum makes sense to me. If you need to find a place for him, think maybe he's not going to be a third baseman long-term, go ahead and just make that change and tell him to start working towards making that change after you acquire him. All that makes sense. All of it happening in one offseason is wild. But at the same time, you watch the guy play and it just all looks right. He's patient. He goes the other way. He hits the ball hard every direction he hits the ball. And all of his teammates say that he's one of the first guys in and the last guys out doing work each day. He's taking notes. He's kind of like a perfect storm of like incredible talent and extreme work ethic that could kind of make this work. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to win a Gold Glove out and right. That seems a bit excessive, although he's one of those super athletes where I'm not really going to bet against him either. But I think he'd be good in the outfield. The two of the other options that the Houston Astros have in their outfield right now shouldn't be playing Major League Baseball. So
your favorite guys, yeah.
Oh, Jake Myers and Chas McCormick. Look, I'm sorry, Astros fans, but if both those guys are in your outfield, you're going to be playing for a wild card spot at the end of the season. That's all I'm saying.
Chas McLimpstick. Sorry, I didn't say it.
Oh, the quotes he had when he was like, "Oh, people are going to be surprised at what we can do," and I'm like, "Yeah, and only if you're not in there, buddy."
Yeah, they're going to be surprised at what Cam Smith can do when he takes
yeah, it is a big surprise. I guess that is true, but again, Smith is just one of those guys that he passes the eye test, he passes the numbers. It just all comes down to how much experience do you think a guy needs to be successful in Major League Baseball, and that there are reasonable takes that you need to give more guys more reps to figure out what happens when you fail and how to adjust to that. But at the same time, when you hear a GM like Dana Brown say, we think this guy can be an absolute battleship, it's kind of hard not to argue with him.
Yeah, I would agree. They went out and they obtained themselves a battleship who was available. I want to give some love here to now that we've talked about probably the two largest names who are making their MLB debuts. There are two players here, one of whom will be making his MLB debut as soon as he appears in a Major League game. One of whom has already appeared in Major League Baseball. He has 32 career at-bats. So for three different teams. So apologies here, not technically a debut, but unsung names that we want to shout out for making opening day rosters as well. I will give love to JC Escarra, the New York Yankees' new backup catcher. From Hialeah, Florida, the home of Nestor Cortez. So the Yankees are on a remarkable streak of having lovable players from Hialeah, Florida on their big league roster, but they trade Jose Trevino to the Reds. They make the backup catcher spot an open competition between ostensibly Alex Jackson, Ben Rice, who's going to be doing, I guess, maybe floating back and forth unless he gets traded in the next 48 hours, which Aaron Boone wouldn't commit to him on the opening day roster. So some weird stuff.
It could happen.
Yeah. But he's a catcher. He's a first baseman. He is whatever he is. And Escarra, who Orioles minor leaguer and not even a defined catcher during the early part of his professional career, ended up in independent baseball, lost the 2020 season of the pandemic like many, hit 220 with a very unimpressive OPS in his brief cameo at AAA Norfolk. He's an Uber driver. And he said he's not just doing that, to get a little on the side. He's doing it because he has no idea what he's doing with his life. So he's genuinely like, I need to make ends meet. I have no idea what my path is, so I'm going to drive Uber for now. It's not like, Randy Dobnak of the Twins drove Uber at some point. It was kind of like, baseball player by day, Uber driver by night. And it wasn't actually a funny story because it was like, minor leaguers make no money, haha. But JC Escarra was even in a different spot where he was like, I don't know what baseball is. I don't know if it's continuing for me. And not only did he go out and, outperform, to say the least, the other options. Rice can slide in at DH now, and Escarra hit 314 this spring at the end of the day. He got an extra point in that average yesterday with an 881 OPS, 3 homers, the clear-cut favorite lefty bat at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees did all the requisite posts after he made the big league roster, him FaceTiming his mom, Aaron Boone, bringing him onto the roster, etc. So not in anybody's rookie of the year mix, not a starting catcher at this juncture, but someone who didn't just get a roster spot with a good story and a powerful narrative, but won the job by hitting bombs, and now is the Yankees backup catcher and gives them higher offensive upside than last year when they had Jose Trevino. And similarly, the Milwaukee Brewers are rostering somebody who, in their 32 big league at-bats, has made very little impact so far, but made themselves undeniable this spring in the form of Vinny Capra.
Yeah, Capra was a guy that, I mean, Escarra was kind of in a different world where you just didn't even know he kind of existed until he popped up out of nowhere. But Capra's been a known commodity, but he's kind of been known as a utility sort of infielder that has good bat-to-ball skills and a decent approach, but limited power, not a lot of upside at the plate, might end up being a bench bat, but was kind of turning into a bit of a journeyman, bouncing around to different organizations just as a depth guy, and was out of minor league options coming into camp. And then he came into camp. He never, like, again, I think his career high for a season in home runs is like 8 or 10 in the minor leagues. And he's been in the minor leagues for a little while. He's hit 6 home runs in spring training. Is that going to stick? Probably not. I mean, it's fair to say that, if a guy's overperforming that much, he's probably not going to be, Nelson, like prime Nelson Cruz. But at the same time, he fits what the Brewers need. Is that kind of a utility infielder that can back up multiple different spots, that can occasionally be used at first base as well if need be. A little bit surprising that he didn't make the team along with another name that we're going to mention a little bit later, because that made more sense to me. But at the same time, he has that kind of versatile defensive profile that the Brewers like to utilize a lot more than other teams. Some teams talk about wanting versatility. The Brewers are a kind of team that will use a guy. If you can play 6 positions, you are going to see time at 6 positions when you're with Milwaukee, right? And just one note on Escarra, that is such a fun story to me. And it's a reminder for all of us that you don't have to be a top prospect making your debut to do something important. And it's an accomplishment worth celebrating. Usually when we see these guys that kind of come out of nowhere from independent ball or, working at Subway or whatever, they're usually pitchers. If we're just being honest with ourselves, and they're usually relievers, because when in doubt, if you can make 15 pitches and you can throw them 95 or up, a team is at least going to look at you.
Yeah.
I do not understand at all how he was able to just turn into a catcher while being an Uber driver, because that's the one position where I feel like you need the most reps to both maintain what you need to do at the plate, but also to learn how to call games, understand how to control a running game, the various game calling aspects. All these things are really hard to do. And he just did it. he just popped up and did it. I mean, I'm with you. Austin Wells' job is safe. I would be shocked if Escarra plays a whole lot, but this is really a fun thing to see a guy just kind of come out of nowhere and sees a job with what is a very storied franchise that is going to be under a microscope. This isn't like a guy making the, the Rockies opening day roster after being an Uber driver, because frankly, Uber drivers will probably do a lot better than some of those guys. Right?
Yeah, they've got 6 Uber drivers, I think, on their opening day roster.
Yeah,
current Uber drivers.
Yeah, it's their current. Yeah, their current rotation. Yeah, no, that sounds about right. So, but again, just super high accomplishment. Big praise for him. And for those wondering how you don't make ends meet when you're a minor league baseball player, I encourage you to look up what minor league baseball players are actually paid rather than what you think that they are paid. And you'll be very surprised when you find out, especially for guys who are just signed. It's here's an opportunity, no signing bonus or anything like that.
Yeah, and also this is Escarra an independent ball, so we're not even talking about affiliated minor league baseball pay. But like you said, first baseman, DH, his entire Orioles career, not a rep at catcher in professional organized baseball until he got to the Yankee system last year, and he played 58. He started 58 games at the position, so crazy excited to see. And the chat also wants us to shout out Kyle Hart. I hope Kyle Hart gets an opportunity to change his ERA in the history books, because right now it's 15.55 after 3 really rough starts with the Red Sox, the pandemic Red Sox in 2020, the Ron Renicky team when they came to their senses and fired Alex Cora for cheating in Houston, and then definitely never rehired him immediately. That didn't happen. But Hart in 2 outings this spring had a 9.39 ERA in 7 2/3 innings. So he's still after coming back from overseas, still trying to get in that groove. And I hope he does get a chance to reduce that career ERA to a palatable point. One player I do want to mention, and we definitely wanted to shout out, a potential rookie of the year candidate for sure, and someone who has, again, appeared in a major league game and appeared in a playoff game already. But you want to talk about a weird line in 2024. Jackson Jobe arguably the top pitching prospect in all of baseball, came up when the Tigers were sort of trying to do a trump card move at the end of the year. Like, oh yeah, you think this is an exciting run to the wild card? Well, guess what? Now Jackson Jobe is on this team, and he pitched in 2 games, threw 4 regular season innings, accrued 0.1 WAR, appeared in 2 playoff games, gave up 3 earned runs, and had a 54 ERA in the wild card series. Almost gave away the Tigers' momentum. Almost. And then they managed to somehow steal it back. And hey, what a crazy little 2-game series that was. Alex Bregman's farewell to Houston, and not hello to Detroit, as he thought all offseason. He's in Boston now. But what are you thinking about Jackson Jobe heading into the regular season when presumably he's going to now get the showcase that I think I don't even know if they thought they were going to showcase him at the end of last year. They just thought they were going to uncork a last-minute wrinkle. And now he's going to actually step up and step into a more meaningful role.
Look, I am of the opinion that Jackson Jobe is the best pitching prospect in baseball. And even if you include Roki Sasaki in that assessment, which technically Roki is a prospect, he hasn't reached those innings limits. And so if it's by the strict definition, he'd be in the conversation, but I still think Jobe is better. It's 4 plus pitches, if not more than that. You know what I mean? Maybe he doesn't have a pitch quite as good as like his peak splitter is, but beyond that, I think that the pitch mix is great. The fastball slider is better than plus, around that plus mark, especially when he's at his best. And then he still has a changeup and a cutter after that. Good luck hitting him. I don't know if I really understand why he's even had that much trouble this spring, other than, again, kind of the usual rust and command issues that come with, starting a spring training and all that good stuff. What I do think, though, is that he might get off to a bit of a slow start. He's still kind of finding his way. Obviously, his debut in, last year was fine, but clearly he's like still learning how to mix his pitches, how to refine his location a little bit, but the stuff is there. It's a high 90s fastball. It's a slide. It's a power slider. And then, for lefties, he has a changeup and a cutter who are both, plus pitches. You can maybe be a little bit lower on that than on the cutter, but even then those are 2 offerings that lefties have to recognize and adapt to. So I love what he brings to the table. I wish he had been able to show out a little more this spring, mainly just because it's purely in my own self-interest. I just wanted to see more awesome stuff out of him, because I think by the end of the year, when the dust settles, he's my favorite for Rookie of the Year. As tough as it is for pitchers to win it, because look, we've seen pitchers like rookie pitchers finish the season with like 2.7 ERAs, and they lose to a hitter that hit 250 but found a way to hit 25 bombs. So it's hard, but I think that he's the kind of guy that could garner a lot of attention nationally and ultimately be a guy that wins Rookie of the Year when the dust settles at the end of the year.
Yeah, I endorse that pick. I'm going to stick with my wild card of Roman Anthony, but I do hear you. Not only do I think Anthony has a better chance than Campbell, I do think Anthony is your Rookie of the Year. But let's see how it unfolds. Of course, the regular season begins in 2 days. And one final shout out before we end the show, because we were hoping to say, hey, how exciting is it that Caleb Durbin made the opening day roster? Vinny Capra, out of options, got the nod. Caleb Durbin also maybe ended spring a little bit colder than he began it. I understand probably some seasoning needed. But like we said, if the Brewers know you can play these multiple positions, they're going to play you in a trillion positions. We will see Caleb Durbin and his wheels and his inability to strike out. He can't fathom a strikeout. He doesn't know what it means to strike out. I think we'll see him soon, but for now he does begin at AAA, and that was sort of an unfortunate roster cut over the weekend.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing. I'm a big Caleb Durbin fan. If you haven't looked up his numbers, especially in like college and early minor leagues, like just look, he just didn't strike out. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, we've seen a couple guys there was a catching prospect for like the Twins and the Braves who was another guy who just never struck out, but he also never saw a pitch he wasn't willing to swing at. So it was just kind of like weird elite back to ball skills and basically nothing else. But in Durbin's case, I think he was a bit of a victim of one, Capra obviously being out of options, playing a similar utility role, but also like the Brewers seem to think that they need to carry both Jake Bauers and 5 outfielders, which I'm not really sure they need to do. But at the same time, you have Christian Yelich, who is coming off an injury, and then you have Garrett Mitchell, who's not exactly known for being the healthiest individual. So I sort of understand early caution, let's just make sure we have our outfield bases covered just in case we need to give these guys a break. But I'm with you. I don't think we're going to have to wait that long for Durbin to get the call up. I am going to be very curious to see if he actually sees some time in the outfield early in the minor league season, because that all of a sudden bringing him up in that scenario over a guy like Isaac Collins, who probably shouldn't be on a big league roster anywhere. If he plays well out in the outfield, maybe you bring him up and now you just have 2 super utility guys on the bench, plus the ghost of Jake Bauers and, obviously, backup catcher and all that good stuff. So I'm bummed, but I also get it. He didn't play overly well this spring, and, giving him a chance to kind of get his feet under him and maybe even getting some more versatility under his belt, I could see him being up pretty quick.
Yeah, 100% agreed, and not quite now, but that does not mean never. We are still believers. Thank you for joining us today. Tuesday show, always happy to do it. And guess what? We are hurtling towards getting some real data that matters. The minor league season is not quite as close around the corner as the Major League Baseball season, but it's still here. We're going to have minor league games soon. That's why the show is situated on Tuesday, so we can talk about the week that was and preview the week that will be after the Monday break, where teams switch cities and shuffle around and get back at it for another 6-game set. I like the way the minor league schedule does it. Not compatible with how the major leagues work, but I do like it. That's probably one of the best changes about that consolidation. And when the season begins, you can find us right here, Tuesdays, noon, on the Baseball Insiders Prospect channel. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me at Adam Weinrib. Eric Cole, thank you for joining me. As always, read the Moonshot, read the Baseball Insiders feed, and join us for the Prospect Show. Eric, happy opening day.
Happy opening day. We'll see you next time.
See you, everybody.